The explosives properly transported.
They have been
writing them just because of where they can even spend the night or something like that, even what they will eat from today.
We'll be live on the ground with the very latest. And top stories brought to you by Vodafone. Together we can. And Prime Insurance. Rest assured, you are insured. And tonight, many are feared trapped. 13 are dead, 4, including an 11-year-old boy, battling for their lives a day after a huge explosion flattened the Apieche community in the western region. The incident happened when a truck conveying ammonium nitrate to a mining company collided with a motorcycle and another vehicle close to an electricity transformer. Several houses and structures have been razed to the ground by the massive explosion that resulted shortly after. We'll take you live to the scene of the blast shortly, but first, take a listen to some residents who say they had calls from some individuals trapped under the rubble and were pleading to be saved.
And I say some will be free. So Shana Grant or Shasa, baby. Actual prisa.
Since yesterday?
It is yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
Or from or phone?
So I say Nipa warning chaining but I call
Nipa that's saying.
Also, Mom went and brought Bate went to me and check, but I'm so I am ready. And to know by say machines in a Pikia sent him whom be or one so yent me.
Your friend is saying, Nipa friend.
You didn't know the one she say. Who say I didn't I saw no the try say, give it civil. But yeah, into know you.
Well, he's also saying that yesterday he received a call from an unknown number. And the person said he's under the rubble here in this community, and he says they've been trying to locate him. So the emergency workers here will be able to rescue the person, but you're unable to find where the person is.
Now, this woman who spoke with my colleague Maxwell Akbakba said her family was nearly wiped out after their home was destroyed.
Small boy, Suarez, Akwesi, and could be so many people. I cannot even mention their names.
Were they closer to the explosion site? Were they closer to the car, or they were at home?
Some of them at home. Serious, very, very serious.
So what time did you come back from work, and what time did you when you came back? What did you see when you came back?
Oh, immediately we heard this accident. Yeah, we had some calls, so immediately we were informed. So we just decided to stop work and come back and see what is happening. So that is what's happened.
What's your name, sir?
Apia Chris.
So 4-bedroom house. Where is help gonna come from for you? What is NADMO telling you? I see them writing the names of those affected. What have they been telling you?
They have been writing them just because of where they can even spend the night or something like that, even what they will eat from today. That's what they are writing. But for any other test, we don't know when they come.
Sir, what did you lose? Toji, what did you lose?
So that was one of the victims of the explosion yesterday, speaking to my colleague Maxwell Akbaba, who said that his family was nearly wiped out after their home was destroyed. Well, the police addressed the media a few hours ago on the casualties recorded at the scene. Director General in charge of Police Public Affairs, DCOP Kwesi Fori, says there were over 190 casualties, out of which 13 lost their lives, with 4 in critical condition.
Let me state in clear terms regarding the general casualty. Officially, the ambulance service and allied agencies recorded 190 casualties. Out of that, 13 are certified to be dead. It is not 17. Rather, 4 of the injured were seriously wounded, and they were taken to a Okomfanochi government hospital. Initially, due to their condition, it was misreported that they were dead. But when they were taken to the hospital, the medical officers certified that they were not clinically dead, and as such, they were admit and treatment is ongoing. So it is 13, and we should take note of that. Again, as you can see, the security officers continue to work here. That is a joint exercise among all the security services and partners. Today, we can say that 36 are on admission at the moment, and 96 have been discharged, and they will be reporting to the medical authorities as and when necessary.
DCOP Kwesi Fori is Director General in charge of Police Public Affairs. Let's go on the lines and speak to Western Regional Correspondent Ina Thalia Kwanzaa. Ina, you visited the hospital. Tell us what you observed.
Yes, Araba. So there are a number of them who are still on admission, especially at the Takwa Hospital. They are recovering. Some of them are in the intensive unit care. But the administrator of the hospital, Abubakar Amas Abbas, revealed that there is one person who they are preparing to airlift, an 11-year-old boy, and he is in a critical condition. Let's take a listen to him.
We have 14 of those victims on admission currently at the various wards. We have those who are admitted at the male surgical, female surgical, ONG, in that. So we have those breakdowns. But in all, we have 14 of them on admission. And as we speak now, we have 11 of them detained at the accident and emergency units. So, and like I said earlier, in our earlier interview, the 11 at the A&E unit could be transferred to the ward depending on the condition of the individual, or discharged if the person becomes more stable. So that is the current situation. So 11 at the A&E, 14 admitted on the wards. So when we put 11 and 14 together, we get 25. So these 25 are currently in our custody in the hospital. We have some discharges, and the discharges so far were 3, and then the death recorded was 1, and then the referrals 2. And out of the referrals, we have one of them to be airlifted soon to 37 Military Hospital by the military aircraft. So we're told by our Regional Director of Health Service, Dr. Furiyebu, that I think the Minister and then the Regional Caucus have made the efforts, have put in mechanism to get the airplane to come down to airlift the young man, the young boy, the juvenile, to 37 Military Hospital.
Mukabir Amasa Abbas, he's the hospital administrator of the Takwa Government Hospital. Ina is still on the line with us. Ina, you also spoke with survivors who have lost their relatives. Share the details with us.
Yes, Arba. So these people tell me how this explosion raided down their houses, and even some of them who were not close by were affected. They've been speaking to us. Let's listen to what they have been saying.
We'll hear from them shortly, but many thanks. Ina Thalia Kwanzaa is our Western Regional Correspondent. Let's cross over to Apiache, where my colleague Maxwell Agbagba is at the disaster scene. Maxwell, walk us through the extent of disaster recorded on the ground.
Well, as it stands now, the entire community has been flattened. Nothing is standing. It's just debris we've been seeing here, and we've seen quite a number of earth-moving machines moving through the rubble, trying to see if there are still possibly some people who possibly can be rescued. Earlier, when I spoke to some of the residents, they made some claims that we couldn't independently verify. A man I spoke to earlier told me that when the disaster struck, he had calls from some of his friends who told them they were under the rubble, under the debris. He says that they are unable to reach them now, and when they call their phone, they are unable to reach them as well. But we've seen an earth-moving machine. We've seen members of the emergency services also here on the ground, the Ghana National Fire Service, NADMO, police, the military, all of them are still here on the ground trying to help with the rescue efforts. Just some minutes ago, we drove about 5 minutes to the Catholic Church here, which is now serving as the residence for all the community people who lost their homes. Many of the people I see here are children. Children here too young to understand the enormity of the disaster that struck their community. So you find many of them jumping around. That's their parents sitting on benches with their chain cupped in their hands, possibly thinking of when they are going to have their own roof over their heads again. A man in the 70s I spoke to earlier here told me he lost his four-bedroom house. He says he had invested the money he made in his working life into the construction of more buildings at PNC. He rented them out, but all of that gone up in a plume of smoke yesterday. All of that flattened by the explosion. He says he doesn't know where his next income is going to come from. It is double tragedy for some of the people seeking refuge here at the Catholic Church. A woman very close to me here lost her 1-year-old child, and she's still here with me. Hello, Patrick Frosting.
Theodora.
Uban, what's with you here saying?
Oko Afinifa.
Okay. I tell no shame same putting here.
But anapani na ye ofie. Nti die hu yan say car no efi. Fanda eja to car mu be se kojo krom na edeba ekuro na piati krom o. Se edu krom be bia ene transformer no eben o ha na car no estofo ehu yan say driver no esi from our head of college. So dala na eja no edel. The one who wants a car and ties no papa. Yes, I obi am pe be dan. The Columbia na na wo maintain.
Omo yin mo yo ma.
Master baba ko na me de ba.
Na wo ka so baba.
Ti we bom ha se mna me ne kwala na kwana na ade na eji one se na mo fa ni na afri mi sa na mo ko to be. Ti ba ta ma be ni so temi am sale ye no. Na eho nyina yokusu ni hushi bio nti efe me ya masumu nyina yokusu di mensa fa masun se na mtise esu efia mine na esum ni muta na ko pim be bia mo fra no esu dafa mi sufra emwan so no mo bia mtise bia ma by the time nimpa hu se bia me tiam se bia mo fra so na se wo ba ku afi
nti ubani we ni ma hu so we na friend say
Ella
now oya collaborate
oya baya afekwa na wasore gina otutu ibi kwa the way afa na yiye no obia wo fi obia ni gina ho ofro bia mo bia jeso this a one can sem obetumi aka bia di watini nyina dia ya se dia ta
nti esi no yehu videos bi wa bontini ade nipa honam nipa body part twitwa ni ade muhu bibi sa wo ye
ebi kwa de na ni tikura ni so
obi na ni team so munem nipa to
min describe ni pano
yeah
because na mi hu ni we titi mi hu ni papa
shedding why last question nti sir ha baby am we CI uti me da because mo ye bebre wa better 500 or how uti me da
ni mo de me da ha bi me ne me mam no na ada ofie
okay nti wo da wo bi wo ma me chen fa bogo to shedding why so I just heard from a woman who lost her daughter in the explosion, and she was narrating to me the moments when the explosion happened. She says the force of the blast actually. She was holding her 2 children, and then she didn't know where they were at a point. It was later that she discovered that her child was dead. Her child's name is Ella, and she has been narrating to me how when she when she woke up, when she regained consciousness, she actually saw a headless body in their community, which is quite much similar to some of the footages that we've seen. Many body parts severed as a result of the explosion. As I speak to you right now, there are a lot of relief items coming in for the people here. Many of them gathered in groups, some of them huddled together under tents, discussing the events of yesterday, discussing what life is going to be from here. Some of them who I spoke to tell me that although they do not have any roof over their heads now, they do not think that they'll be able to sleep here because just from a guesstimation of the number of people that I'm seeing here, I'm seeing quite like about 500 people who will now have to sleep in one room. We've seen some mattresses arriving for them, but they say that the conditions there wouldn't be really proper for them, so they'll prefer to go and sleep at the homes of their friends. And indeed, when we pulled through here at the Catholic Church, we saw some people holding their holy bag, the only thing that they could salvage. Some of them 3 clothes, 4 clothes, 5 clothes, saying that they are moving to other communities to go and pass the night. And hopefully, when they break, they will come here and then and see if there will be any relief items for them.
Right, Maxwell. Hold on for me, because we need to talk about the question on the minds of many now, and that is whether this disaster could have been avoided and those 13 people whose lives were snuffed out could still have been alive. And that brings me to the issue of how the explosives were transported. Were safety measures adhered to in the transportation of these hazardous materials? Listen to security analyst and former military personnel, Colonel Festus Abwaji, who says it does not appear to him that the transportation of the explosives was handled properly. In his opinion, there should have been more than one police escort and also a fire tender in the escort.
My personal understanding is that there seems to have been the lack of basic safety and security precautions in moving the explosives from one point to the other. Now, in view of what your colleague has said, when explosives are being transported, they need to meet certain guidelines. In this case, there should have been not only a police escort to manage the traffic, but also a security escort, because in all jurisdictions, precautions are taken that ammonium nitrate does not fall into wrong hands for criminal purposes. The way I see the issue is that the company did not ensure that the escort itself was adequate. I'm told there was a police escort. How large, how it was arranged in front, behind the vehicle. He was doing the transportation, I'm not sure. But there should also have been a security escort. Under the circumstances, whatever arrangements were put in place were not sufficient. And therefore, the collision with this motorbike or tricycle or whatever it is caused the accident, which then caused an ignition that then created the flame.
So that's a security analyst, Colonel Festus Abwaji, speaking to us earlier. Also, lecturer at the Environment and Engineering Safety Department of the University of Mines and Technology, Dr. Eric Stem, says the police must focus its investigations on how the explosives were packaged and transported.
So the explosive that was being transported, according to the Minerals Commission, is amphil. Amphil is used underground for the purposes of blasting. So I think if you look at this particular accident, the investigation should focus on these three. Like I mentioned, we can do very little about oxygen because it's readily available in the environment. Exactly. We need to look at how the LI, which is on explosive, we have a mining and minerals regulation, focusing specifically on explosives, handling, transportation, storage, manufacturing of explosives. So the LI gives a lot of requirement on the transportation of the explosives. I think the investigation would focus on the packaging, on the transportation, whether all the requirements of the LI was followed. And then also there has to be a focus on what was the ignition source, what actually caused, because if there was no ignition source, then the explosion wouldn't have happened. So the investigation would actually focus on that. And
so that's Dr. Eric Stem. He's a lecturer at the Environment and Engineering Safety Department of the University of Mines and Technology. Let's go back to my colleague Maxwell Agbagba, who's still on the line. Maxwell, the police addressed a presser a few hours ago. What did they say on the driver transporting the explosives and police escort?
Well, the Director of Police Public Affairs, ACP, Kwesi Fori, was very emphatic. He says that the driver and the team accompanying the explosive adhered to all safety protocols. They adhered to all the regulations governing the transportation of such explosives.
Transport of the explosives procedurally were properly done, and that there was a police escort, and the police escort assisted the driver in making sure that they alerted members of the public. The policeman was part of those who came to the school to whisk the school children away. He was in the escort vehicle. He witnessed what happened, and even their escort vehicle was also used to evacuate the injured.
Okay. So, but for that, the casualty would have been higher.
Yes, had it not been that, even looking at the school building and looking at the number of school children in there, we could have registered something bad. But thank God, he really assisted and spread out information about the danger, and a lot of people managed to run away from a place that is now the crime scene.
Director General in charge of Police Public Affairs, DCOP, Kwesi Fori there, ACP Kwesi Fori there. Earlier, you heard my colleague Maxwell Agbagba bringing us the latest from the ground. Well, the minority in Parliament has issued a statement calling for an impartial inquiry into this incident because they believe that it could have been averted with strict regulatory enforcement and compliance of protocols. My colleague Kweku Asante has a copy of the statement. He joins me in studio. What more does the statement say?
So, Araba, the statement says that it is the firm conviction of the minority that strict regulatory enforcement and compliance of protocols, these unfortunate incidents could have been averted. They are calling for an impartial inquiry into the heart-wrenching accident and unfortunate loss of lives and destruction of several properties. They want this inquiry, among others, to prevent the recurrence of such incidents in the future, and they are calling on government to do all within its powers to support the affected people in order to ameliorate their loss.
All right, many thanks, Kweku Asante. John Jinapor is a ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee, and he joins us on the line. Mr. Jinapor, thanks for your time. The police say the safety measures were adhered to in the transportation of these hazardous materials. Do you still insist there must be an impartial inquiry, or do their explanations suffice?
Absolutely, because the police itself ought to come under investigation. Who was the dispatch rider? Is the person trained? Is the vehicle well equipped? If you read the Minerals and Mining Explosives Regulation, LI 2177, the vehicle leading the actual container of vehicle carrying the explosives ought to have a proper siren, which should alert all those ahead of the vehicle. And so all these are issues that will come up in the explosion. I think that the comments by the police, in my opinion, is premature. Let us get an independent investigative committee. Let their terms of reference be well known. Let the period and duration for the investigation be known. And when the investigation is complete and the report is ready, it should be made readily available so all of us can read it and compare it to the tenets and provisions of LI 2177.
Is it your understanding that these regulatory measures were not adhered to? What information do you have?
What we don't want is a reoccurrence of this incident. What we want to be sure is not just that a police vehicle was leading the actual vehicle. We want to be sure that they followed all the safety protocols. Even the vehicle that conveys the explosives, it ought to be insulated such that in the event of an explosion, the impact will be minimal. They ought to have certain trained officers. They ought to follow certain protocols. If you read the document, it's more than 120 pages. It's very, very clear. This LI that was passed in 2012 spells out exactly what ought to be done. And so I think that let us get a competent team
an impartial team, an independent team. They should do a proper investigation and come out with the reports, the facts of the matter, the facts of the incident, and recommendations thereof. Parliament can then weigh in and decide if we are satisfied to engage with all the stakeholders so that we do not have a reoccurrence of this dastardly, unfortunate, and gruesome act.
John Jenapo is ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee in Parliament. Many thanks for your time. Meanwhile, Lands and Natural Resources Minister Samuel Abu Jenapo says government will punish anyone whose negligence may have led to the explosion.
The focus of government now, I think, are in twofold. The first is to provide some relief. And I know that NADMO has been working overnight to be able to send some relief to the displaced people and also care for the injured. And the second is to assemble the preliminary facts. The Ghana Police Service, the Ghana Fire Service, and of course the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, working through the Minerals Commission and the Inspectorate Division of the Minerals Commission, is working to assemble the initial facts so we get to understand what are the, if you want, the very basic facts. What caused this? Under what circumstances did this accident occur? And thereafter, I believe the broader inquiry can come in, and that inquiry obviously will have to be multifaceted because that.
So moving forward, what will happen to the many who have been displaced? Well, there's good news for them because Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who led a government delegation to the area earlier today, assured the community that government will ensure reconstruction of their destroyed structures.
A major disaster befell us yesterday. It's not only before the community here in Apieti, it befell the whole of Ghana. And that is why His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, asked me to lead this government delegation to come and assess the situation and see what we are going to do for the people. We wish to express our deepest condolences to those who sadly lost their lives from this very, very sad incident. As you know, there was an explosion of a vehicle which was carrying explosives, and that was the reason why we've had this disaster. So far, we are heard at least 13 people have died. The numbers will change as we see more, get more and more information. So government on its part is going to do everything to support the families, to support those who have been injured. Thankfully, the ambulance service has played a major role in the rescue. It was a rescue effort that was very well coordinated by the security services. We are also looking into how to make sure that all those who are injured are taken care of.
Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia there. Another observation that many have made is how people were taking photos at the scene prior to the explosion. That appears to be the trend now. Taking photos or videos has become primary for many people in such situations, and helping to save victims is now secondary. Well, a former health and safety manager at the Goldfields Takrady mine, Charles Opoku-Amoating, who was shocked, like many, at this behavior, wants more to be done to educate the populace on prioritizing their safety.
The fundamental problem is discipline. These motor riders, that is, the transportation of such material is regulated. They are not supposed to go 60 kilometers per hour. There was an escort vehicle attached because of the material being conveyed. But in such an instant, no one expected such occurrence because it wouldn't be from the driver because they are well-trained shaping. But here's the case. Look at what happened. A brachial turning in front, and then this rider also appearing all of a sudden went underneath, because of the dragging. there was this frictional movement, and then the spark came up. It was a petrol machine, a motor. So that's where the ignition came. And then the driver, knowing what was in, warding people off. People were very inquisitive, taking photos, the attention. So the learnings are that our attitude is where we must be exposing ourselves more, cautioning everybody to ensure that we don't come into such. Because look at it.
So for the explosives, I don't know, is there no other way we can transport them?
No. For this instance yesterday, I can't say that there was a mistake from the transporter. Everything was set. That's why I say that they are regulated.
Charles Opoku-Amoateng is a former health and safety manager at the Goldfields Takoradi mine. Ending Top Story for today. Top Story was brought to you by Vodafone. Together we can. And Prime Insurance. Rest assured, you are insured. My name is Araba Kumson. Ghana Connect comes up next, and you want to stay tuned because the Black Stars and their abysmal performance at the ongoing AFCON is up for discussion. George Adoju